Welcome to the Three Strengths Podcast. We're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Gaston Rougeau Burns. I will currently be a psychological intern for the Heart of America Consortium. My master's is in marriage and family therapy. My interests are in couples, work, and family work. To my right,
I'm Philip Hawley. I have my master's in clinical psychology. I will be a psychological intern for my doctoral degree at Wellspan Behavioral Health in York, Pennsylvania, starting in July. And my interests are in health psychology and primary care psychology.
And I'm Antony Hannigan, and I have a master's in clinical psychology as well as a master's in forensic science. And I'm also going to be starting an internship in the fall in Nebraska at Premier Psychiatric Group.
And so together we all make the Three Strengths. And so we're going to be discussing psychological topics of the day, things that interest both the public as laypersons and also professionals. And the goal is for everybody to kind of glean something from this podcast and hopefully come up with a little bit more information that they started with. So one of the topics that we're going to start with today,
we're going to talk about gun control. Seems to be a big thing in the news right now.
Very true.
With the Boston bombings, the recent shootings in Connecticut, and then I guess it was just last summer was the shootings in Colorado, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I know one of the big misconceptions about I guess just kind of mental illness and the propensity for violence is that there's a link. Is that if you are mentally ill, if you have some sort of mental incapacity, or maybe you're suffering from some sort of mood disorder, that you are more likely to engage in violent acts of behavior. And I was kind of hoping you could speak to that, Antony.
Sure. The research has shown a lot of different aspects of how mental illness and violence play out. There's definitely a lot of inconsistencies in the research as far as that goes, but mostly what it comes down to, we just kind of want to get rid of that stigma on mental illness, that a person with mental illness is really no more likely to be violent than a person without mental illness.
Exactly.
I think you have some research.
Yeah, I actually pulled up the American Psychiatric Association's their access to firearms by people with mental illness. So this was like their official statement about their stance on gun control.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to read directly from some of this. The vast majority of violence in our society is not perpetrated by persons with serious mental disorders. The best available estimates indicate that violent behavior attributable to mental disorder accounts for only 4 to 5% of violence in the United States, and that the rate of violence among people with mental disorders without comorbid substance abuse disorders who have recently been discharged from psychiatric hospitals is about the same as the rate among people who live in the same neighborhoods.
Very true.
So yeah, really just right along the same lines that you're saying there is that it's just not something that you can really pin down based on someone's mental illness history.
And then to speak to Philip's point, we're not only talking about violence in general, but we're talking about, I guess, a subset of violence where statistically violence has been on the decline as a nation since its inception. And so we are at the lowest point in history. Historically, we are at a point where violence has been the lowest it has ever been. So we're talking about a portion of that violence in saying that the media really seems to kind of portray that this kind of happens all the time.
Right. And that is completely inaccurate, especially with mass murders and incidents of mass violence, in that it's really hard to even, people think about profiling a mass murderer, and that's something that you really cannot do because there's so few mass murders that actually happen. Mm-hmm. It's just that now we are seeing it over and over on TV, and it feels like it's happening more.
And so I guess this being kind of your research area of interest, are there any things that we can glean from the research that says what we might be able to do to predict if a person is going to engage in type of behavior?
There are a few things that are specific to mass murderers are a little bit different than people who engage in regular violence. One of them is that they tend to seem to have a preoccupation with weapons and war, so it's going to be the people that are closest to them that are going to know those kind of things. Mm-hmm. There's also a concept that they call leakage, which was kind of a term that came up with Dr. Reed Malloy, and that is this tendency they told somebody about this crime, and that's one of the things that makes mass murders a little bit more preventable, if you could say that, is that somebody has usually told someone else that this is something that they're wanting to do, and especially now with social networking, is a lot of it you're seeing is on Facebook. There have been incidents where somebody will post something on Facebook, their friends will like it and not realize that they were really planning something, an attack or a suicide or something along those lines. So there's usually, with mass murder, a very deliberate and planned nature of how that is going to occur, as opposed to regular types of violence tend to be more reactive and have a lot of emotion behind them. Yeah. And I mean, as far as you can tell, you can't really they tend to be a male, but that's just kind of what's been happening. Tend to be Caucasian American, and a lot of times, along with that preoccupation with weapons and war, they'll have a really developed fantasy life. They may come up with rebellious nicknames for themselves. But again, you know, with mass murder being such a low-rate crime, it's really hard to pin down those kind of things.
Yeah, and I know one of the things you mentioned in the past was that the occurrences of mass murder, especially historically, is that there's not very many to draw from.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about, I guess, numbers below...
Okay. There are a lot of the studies, I mean, because it's a worldwide phenomenon, and we tend to think of things in, you know, American terms. But I couldn't really tell you exactly how many mass murders. I know that in 2013 there's been 13 incidents.
And then I guess thematically, one of the things that you're also talking about is that it seems that the best predictor of whether these individuals are going to commit these violent crimes is their past behavior. So if they've engaged in these type of behaviors before, or behaviors even like it, or I guess a kind of acting it out, fantasy life, stuff like that, if they've done those things, that's a really good indicator if they will do those things in the future. So.
Right, and that's right down the lines from the Psychiatric Association too, is that they've really kind of shown that just past episodes of violence or some of these documented incidents of loss of control while intoxicated is just some of the best ways that we have to predict future violence. It also seems like there's kind of some overlap in there with the substance issues.
Right. If you're looking at mental illness as far as substance abuse and how that is also a type of mental illness, then that is one of the factors that definitely increases your risk for violence, either with premeditated types of violence or regular aggressive violence, is that definitely that substance abuse link.
And so it sounds like we've kind of hit on a couple basic tenets about the misconceptions that maybe the media has or that individual lay people have in regards to whether an individual is going to commit violent behavior or violent acts. And it really seems like we're saying that there's a couple things you can draw from in regards to behavior and the things that they do, but it doesn't seem like one person with mental illness is any more likely to commit a violent crime than another person without mental illness.
Right.
And that the basic predictor of whether a person will commit a violent crime is if they've done something similar to it in the past.
Right. And we definitely want to get the point across that, you know, to look for someone with mental illness as a risk factor for this type of violence is really a waste of time because of the way that, you know, that plays out.
And definitely the rarity of it. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, thanks again for tuning in. Just want to encourage you to join the YouTube channel. Hit up us on Twitter and Facebook. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love feedback as we kind of continue to grow this community.
Yep.
And please just send us all your questions and concerns that you might have.
And so once again, my name is Gaston Rougeau Burns.
Philip Hawley.
And Anthony Hannigan. And please post some things that you would like us to discuss, and we will make sure to get that on here.
Exactly. And so once again, we are the Three Strengths.